evening, YouTube. Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully you guys are doing well. I'm going to try a different video format today here, whereas before I feel like I've been making these videos a lot longer than perhaps I should have. And I don't know if anyone really wants to watch a 24-minute video, so we're going to try to make things a little bit easier. Might be a little bit nerded out with the way I talk about things here, so just bear with me here. If you have any questions, of course, let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. That being said, though, yesterday I discussed I was going to be covering more of the severe weather threat that's coming over the course of this week and then into the weekend. That's what this video is today. We do see atmospheric conditions ongoing now, or atmospheric river conditions ongoing now. I do even see a little bit of heavy snow ongoing over towards the Dakotas and Minnesota. No reports exactly on what's going on there. There have been meso discussions for moderate to heavy snow over there ongoing. So we'll have to see what that yields by tomorrow's video. And then, of course, there is the severe weather threat that we'll be watching as we start really from Wednesday onward, as we now have a marginal risk for tomorrow. So for Wednesday and Thursday, our marginal and slight risk for those days are more so going to be for hail, as these storms are kind of leaning towards more of an elevated type of setup. These storms are not surface based, which would lead more so into a tornado and wind threat. Although the threat isn't exactly zero, elevated storms usually will lean more so towards a hail threat. So for tomorrow, this is kind of leaning more towards a cold core setup. We look at the temperatures for this, we'll kind of get a good idea of it. And then also we'll take a look at the upper level jet and low level jet. You'll kind of figure out quickly why tornadoes aren't really high up on the totem pole as far as the hazard type is concerned. But basically, from areas to the west of Kansas City, heading through Kansas City all the way up even towards Chicago, there is a very marginal threat for hail. Wind and tornado threat, nothing really going there. So I'm not too concerned with that, nor really is anyone else currently. Tomorrow's threat is a little bit more interesting, but we're leaning more so towards a threat of hail with this as well. Again, an elevated type of setup. Whenever these storms will form among a cold front here, sometimes they'll end up having these colder pockets towards the surface and warmer pockets aloft, and then the atmosphere really is more or less, it's kind of hard to describe, but basically almost inverted, but not really inverted. It's a weird process. I'd honestly feel like I'd be better off making a whole video explaining that process instead of trying to go over it here, because I feel like I'd end up making a 50-minute video over that. But that being said, slight risk extends from south and south central Texas all the way up towards southern Oklahoma. Again, main threat is hail with this. There's even a significant hatched risk or significant area that's off to the western half of this slight risk. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Storm should be firing late in the evening on Thursday for this. And then the big day seems to be Friday. It seems like Friday's been that bigger day. And we've been mentioning these cities for a while: Nashville, Jackson, Memphis, Little Rock, Greenville, Jackson, Shreveport. We've been talking about you guys for a bit, but now we have to also look at Alexandria and Lufkin now in play. Can't disinclude you yet, New Orleans, even though you are just to the south of this slight risk. We can't rule you out. I'm thinking you'll probably be fine. The most you might be a marginal risk, but again, we'll have to trend. We'll have to see how the weather models trend. But I think anywhere across this half of the slight risk, I might have to watch you for an increased threat of severe weather, maybe even some tornadoes, some of which could even be strong here. There's going to be a really strong jet streak that pops in through here, and you'll see that in just a second here. So there could be a chance that's somewhere in this pocket here, and I'm not saying the whole pocket, but somewhere within this region, we could see an enhanced risk pop up. Further east we go, the parameters aren't as good. And then as far as Saturday is concerned, there may even be a marginal to even slight risk developing over here. Maybe even areas a little further off to the east too, but I've definitely been noticing some things with this. But that being said, let's go ahead and get a look at the models here. So no euro with this one today, by the way. GFS is mainly going to be what we're looking at here. GFS and the NAM, actually. They both are in pretty good agreement right now. The euro just hasn't really been picking up on this storm really well, so it's kind of been a waste of time for me to just continually pour over that data when it's just not giving me anything to work with here, so to speak. Okay, so first things first here, we're going to look at Wednesday's marginal risk, and you're going to quickly see why. Wind maximum way too far to the north. This is our severe area here, where I have my cursor pointing. Already see wind maximum not very strong. And this is towards the upper levels. Usually for a severe threat that's towards the upper levels, you want to see 65 plus. You do see that here. But the wind direction is also another key factor with that. Low level jet is not there with this system as well that we're looking towards Wednesday with. So not much really going on there. By the time storms would have a chance to access some of that energy here, daytime heating's gone. The surface temps around this area weren't really going to be impressive to begin with. We even go ahead and click a sounding here real quick. This is towards the late evening hours. Look at that. This is over towards Chicago. 43 degrees, 42 degrees dew point. What do you know? Nothing. So, just a quick example of as to why we aren't super concerned with this severe setup here. This is a time when the severe threat will be a little bit more feasible. And even then, again, the temperatures are a little bit cold. These storms are a little bit more surface based, but given the other parameters, not much to be had there. Snow hail matches. It's a tricky setup. It's what you would almost call a cold core setup without the wind shear, basically. So let's head into Thursday now. Oops. This is Thursday afternoon. Here's our trough right here. Kind of in that positive to neutral tilt at this point. And by this point here, this will be when the severe weather will be most feasible. It's marginal. Storms are leaning a little bit away from the surface base, especially towards the moisture return, I would say. And then on top of that, low-level helicities are not that strong. Directional shear is there, but minimal. But there's no real curve in this hordeograph here that leads me to believe there's going to be anything tornadic. And even then, just the available energy in the atmosphere with this is not impressive. And this is right towards one of our areas of interest too. So that's what we have going on for Thursday. Heading into Friday, this is a much more impressive look. Have a marginal tornado threat. This storm looks a tad bit on the linear. Wait a second. No, it doesn't. It's surface based, but I don't like how these dew points and temperatures are overlapping each other at the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. You want to kind of see a little bit more lapse rates in there, just to look where these storms can kind of breathe a bit more and really start to thrive. Not to say that this can't really become nasty here. There's a pretty good low-level hordeograph curve here. Strong helicity here too, 400 meters squared per second squared. I want to see it a little bit closer to the surface though. When it's towards this level, it's still prevalent, it's still strong, it's still dangerous. It still could be dangerous. But when you start to see that above 700, I kind of wonder sometimes. I've seen soundings like this that have been absolutely volatile, and then other times I've seen these produce nothing. So you can't really read into these too much. But based off what I see here, I'm leaning away from a tornado threat with this particular setup so far. Not to say that it can't happen, but it's not the most impressive thing I've seen. It's not a nightmare scenario by any stretch. That upper level jet here does get up to about 100 knots later into the evening, so this tornado threat could be overnight. And then as we go forward, we see that that jet streak start to pop up over here towards the mid-Atlantic, and this is where our problems on Saturday could emerge. So we'll switch over to the NAM here, and we'll go ahead and just look at the low-level jet. So we'll roll this forward. It's a pretty similar deal. Here's Wednesday's low-level jet, almost non-existent. You can see it, everything's just too out of position to really be of concern right now. And then Thursday, here's our severe areas all the way back here where the cursor is. And like I said, no real low-level jet develops here. We'll click this sounding really quickly. Oh, wait a minute. What? Hold on. How is that even... That has thrown me for a little bit of a loop here. So, let me make sure I look... Oh, okay, so this says tornado here, but I clicked an area where there was really nothing on the low-level jet. And the NAM's usually a good model. Is this thing kind of tweaking a bit here? We have a low-level jet of about 20 knots. Usually that's not very sufficient for severe weather, but that sounding is definitely indicating tornado. There's just enough of a low-level curve in the hordeograph right towards maybe just above the surface where we could get some action here. This storm does look like it's elevated just based off of how the temperature thing kind of makes that little slant towards the left here, and then kind of tries to come back out briefly. I find that interesting. I'm not sure if I agree with this here. Sometimes you gotta study up to make sure you know whether or not these are bogus, and that looks a little bit bogus. Can't rule it out. I'm not gonna say never to it, but no, I am gonna say never to that. Who am I kidding? It looks off. That just looks off. Anyway, though, we're losing sight of the objective here. This is heading towards Friday. We can only get up to about 84 hours with the NAM, which is kind of irritating. But when we look at the NAM here, look at that. That looks a lot more realistic. This is what I would expect to see when I look at a sounding analog that leans towards a tornado threat. You see a little bit of lapse rates towards the low to mid levels here. You have a really good helicity. Very pronounced low-level hordeograph curve here. You even get some good sounding analogs leaning towards both the hail and supercell sounding. And this could even have a strong tornado potential to it as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how things develop with this. That's why I like looking at the NAM, because the NAM seems to really pick up on severe weather pretty well. Whether this actually ends up being right is still yet to be seen, though. So we'll go ahead and pretty much use the NAM from this point. So we'll start out by looking lastly at the temperatures and then the dew points, and we'll just go on from that point. Nothing against the GFS. It's a global, but it's more so a global model. It's pretty versatile across the board, whereas I feel like the NAM over the last year or two has really begun to specialize over severe weather, or at least just as long as I've been using it. That being said, let's go ahead and look at the temperatures. Warm sector, not very present across this region here. Again, looks like it's leaning towards more of a cold core type look. Even then, we're not even getting up to 60. So it kind of makes for a difficult type of setup here. And then, of course, when we go towards Thursday, A little bit more impressive of a warm sector across this region here. Only problem that I have with that setup, again, storms are elevated. Can't and then on top of that, the jet streaks are a little bit too far out of place for tornadic development from the looks of it. Friday is a much different story, however. Warm sector in place there. Dew points will be in place there too. We've known this for a bit now. And we'll just jump over to the moist sector as well. Very ripe dew points right here, getting to 65 plus, some 70s even possible over here towards eastern Texas. Very intense look possibly right here as we get into the evening hours across Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Even Tennessee here looks like it could be pretty ominous. So given all those parameters together, and then really the look that we're going to be going for here is more so going to be the surface cape on really both Thursday and Friday. There's a lot of energy available on Thursday for the surface, but just the overall lift might be the problem there. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments for sure. I'll gladly take that because there's still a lot I'm trying to learn. But again, like I said, surface cape, it's been present. It's been a very relevant trend on the models for a minute here. 1,400, 1,500 joules per kilogram. Definitely leans towards a hail threat too. You don't have to have a super high cape value for tornadoes, but you do kind of favor those more when you're looking towards a hail threat here. Again, these soundings here where you see the negative helicities kind of drive me crazy here. It's wild to see that sometimes. It's not uncommon, but it's just kind of new to me, I guess. That being said here, severe looks like the probable hazard type, leaning more so towards hail. Yes, looks like it could be an elevated storm here from the looks of it. Sorry, I'm starting to nerd out already. Like I said, there's a lot I'm still learning about when it comes to storm development. Never going to be too humble to admit where I'm learning, where I could be wrong. Alright, now here's a setup that I'm more familiar with right here for sure. Especially when you start seeing the lapse rates like what you see here. I think I looked at this a little earlier. But yeah, this definitely leans towards more tornado threat. And this is actually a pretty strong surface cape reading and mixed layer. So it's definitely something notable here to be watching for Friday. This has the look and potential of maybe an outbreak, but the storm mode is going to be the real question for Friday, I feel like, at this time. I think whether you end up getting prefrontal storms will determine a lot as far as the count of tornadoes are concerned. But I think there could very well be a few. That being said, we'll go ahead and see what the NAM has to offer here as far as the reflectivity type. A little too early to look at the composite reflectivity, I feel like. I'll save that for more so tomorrow night or Thursday. But the precip type we can look at here. So here is when we start to see those storms really begin to develop here. Unfortunately, we only get 84 hours out of this. May switch back over to the GFS to make sure that we get a good look at these. But I do see some potential for some prefrontal storms here, especially on the southern flank of this low pressure that pops up here. Again, this is going to be the timing of this is going to be really the key to everything. as to what kind of severe weather we will end up getting and how long it will persist here. Because the forcing around this low is strong, but a little further to the south here, it's not quite as prevalent. So we could see a few discrete cells pop up early, and then eventually we'll see this transition into a linear threat with maybe even embedded supercells in there as well. So a lot of moving parts with this setup. Welcome to spring. This is nothing new. So brace yourselves. It could be an active time of year. Definitely looks like we could be starting out that way for sure. But switch over to the GFS really quick, and then we'll probably end the video from this point. I know I got to be closing in on almost 20 minutes. All right, so onward to the GFS we go. Here's that low pressure. Timing's a little different. GFS leans more so towards linear, but I think embedded supercells are within that line there. I'm more so going to be watching towards the southern sector with this type of look here. And there we go. Perfect example. Southern side of where that those storms have popped up here. Warm sector. More discrete storms possible here, and then as a result, strong helicity, weak supercell analogs here. Tornado potential is notable, but the curve in the hordeograph is the main thing that has my attention. That and the helicity, those are very impressive. Those are two very impressive looks there. Everything else is sufficient, I would say. So again, Friday is gonna be very interesting to watch as far as from a meteorological perspective. I think severe weather and all hazards of severe weather are definitely in play. Tornado threats gonna be the biggest question heading into Friday morning though. That being said, let's go ahead and get out of this sounding here and close out here, because again, linear mode is what we're going to start to see this transition into, and we could see a few severe storms possible across western parts of New York and maybe even Pennsylvania, or maybe even southern Pennsylvania. So a lot of interesting stuff going on here. It's going to be plenty of content coming, so I hope you're all ready, because this could be an indicator of what we could be seeing for this spring. There's also the April outlook that's coming soon, so look forward to that, and plenty of other stuff for both Weather Nerd 101, maybe even a couple of live streams, depending on getting this set up, depending on how I get this setup going here. But it's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you know what to do, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video to anyone that might be in an area of interest for severe weather, or just keep people around you informed. Also, let me know in the comments just what you could be experiencing if you happen to be in one of those risk areas. But that being said, this has been Tyler Metalhead Weatherman. I'll see you guys later. Sorry for this late upload, but you guys take care, and I will see you soon. Have a good night.